Happy Saturday. I just remembered what I forgot. Oh, that's okay. It's okay. Happy Saturday. It's not Friday. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. It's great to see you for our first ever potluck night. I'm kind of excited about this idea, I have to say. So, for those of you who are just joining us and going, "What is a potluck? What is a potluck night?" By the way, Barbara, this is the image you sent, one of them that we'll look at later, the Claire Murray rug behind me. Got my green screen going. For potluck night tonight. Now, yesterday night, I was going to run the live two-person interview show with Robin Whitford, and she ended up being sick. So everybody said, get well soon, and she is feeling better already. So hopefully next Friday's the night we do that together. But then I had no content ready for yesterday, and it's been busy times, you know. So I thought, ooh, what if it worked like a potluck night, and we were getting together at somebody's house, and we all brought a little something, and it made for the show together, because putting content together for a 2-hour show is a big time thing. So it worked out really well. I wondered, I know it's hard to hit you with stuff like this and say, what, do you have something to send or something to talk about? But a lot of people did. So thank you for that. We've got lots of interesting things to talk about tonight. Everybody brought a little bit of something, and in my mind, I'm kind of metaphorically putting it out in the kitchen, like the old days on those chafing dishes, plugging everything in and having a little bit of everything tonight. So it's our first potluck night, and maybe we can do it in person soon, I hope. But for now, I think this is going to work great. We have lots of interesting things to talk about. Just glancing at my sheet, I forgot I wanted to get something from my workspace to show you, but we'll just talk about it later. And it's a silly thing. You'll see what I mean when we get there. So I want to say happy evening to everybody, pipe holders and frog. That's another one of Barbara's inspirations. Barbara sent some great photos, and it was really, I was a little bit late today. It's been a crazy day putting the link for this together. So thank you all for sticking with it and finding the link and remembering that we were on an odd night. That was a cool photo. That's one of the first things I think we're going to look at. Linda, great to see you. Pam, great to see you. Hello from beautiful, almost summery weather in Liberty, South Carolina. You are admiring the frog. I asked my sisters if they knew where the ones my mother. Oh, right. Those would be extra special ones. I've got stuff to say about frogs too. But we'll be there. We'll be there very soon with that. And Becky, great to see you. Happy Saturday night. Happy cocktail time from Windy, Indiana. That has such a good ring to it, doesn't it? Ooh, ooh, what's that song? What's that song from a musical? Something Indiana. Come on. Gary, Indiana, right? Gary, Indiana. Not Windy. Windy works really well, though. Kaz, great to see you. Happy potluck night from Wisconsin. It is great to see you. Pam says, Linda, I didn't even realize those were pipe holders. Wow. I know it, right? We're going to get some good tips from each other tonight. It's going to be a good tip night. And Kaz asked in a message, is this like a gallery night? When we do this in the future, it could be like a gallery night, but rather than being image oriented, or at least all of it being image oriented, some of it has to be, right? Because we want to look at some rugs. But it could be a mix of other things too. So a lot of people sent in questions like talking points. What do you do with this? That reminds me, did my friend? No, she didn't write back. So there's going to be some shout outs, questions that I don't know the answer to. I'm going to be shouting out to you all to see if you can help with the answers to some of these questions. It's like conversation starters. So yeah, something different. Let's see how it goes. Kirsten, great to see you. Cocktails on Saturday. Nice. I agree. I've just got some water today. I'm not set up at all. It is an enormous water at that, isn't it? I'll tell you, we could be moments away from being infiltrated with crazy noise because one of Teddy's buddies is over, which is always great when that happens. And when Teddy uses the restroom, it takes some time, so he's up there doing that. And in the meantime, Jocelyn walked across the street to the little pharmacy to get some sodas and things. So they might bust in at any moment, even though I warned them 1,000 times, keep it down when you walk through the door. Don't be crazy. I bet you they're going to be crazy. And then Jocelyn's little friend is coming over for a sleepover. So We are going to be, I said, just stay upstairs for a couple of hours while we have our potluck time. But I apologize in advance if there's craziness, and hopefully there's not naughtiness to accompany the craziness. Let's see what happens. Mom, great to see you. Happy potluck night. I still have a nice cocktail in hand that I made last evening. That's right. What you did your martini with the olives? Oh no, you did your Bloody Mary. You did your Bloody Mary. Oh, how fun. Win-win. That's it. It's just been like fermenting overnight. It's even more powerful and delicious now. Okay, so I think the kids are coming back. That's Buttons. I'm sorry. When you see the green screen, I'm usually at home. I was at the studio earlier. I was getting the Magpie inserts ready for the magazines to ship. And I just felt like I wanted to come home, you know. But it does mean that Buttons might run his mouth. Linda H., great to see you. Happy cocktail night in Massachusetts. Catherine, happy. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That usually shuts them up for a minute. Catherine, great to see you. Perfect spring day in Missouri. Oh, look at all those little emojis. Little wheat field, little clover. Oh my gosh, tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. I forgot. Holy moly's. Little bluebird and a bunny and a sun. How fun. Olivia, great to see you. Hello in Ireland. Oh my gosh. Is it a big thing over there? I have to ask. I've never been in Ireland during St. Patrick's Day. Is it like cuckoo times over there? Is everything busting at the seams and people out and celebrating? Because here it's absolutely bonkers. I wouldn't even think about going into New Haven because it's just, you know, years ago it was more interesting and exciting, but now it's just there's a lot of people falling down drunk on sidewalks and crazy drivers. I sound like I'm 120, don't I? But the older I get, the less fun those mob scenes are. You know what I mean? The energy is good, but then you want to leave immediately. There's like a big parade in New Haven. It's a big day here. So I'm going to drive in the other direction toward the quiet corner. My plan is to go out there tomorrow to visit with Donna Swanson at, remember Whispering Hill? I did the first couple of hook-ins when I started the group over there. We always had a great turnout, always a lot of fun. It's about an hour and 20 minutes for me, so it's not far at all. But usually I tell her I'm going to go so I don't surprise her, you know. So I thought I'd go over there because, you know, when I was in Colorado, one of the girls in the guild, right, in Rebecca's guild, had a really, really, really wide. It looked like a Hartman hook because it had like a brass head on it, and the shaft was huge. Like it was a wacky looking thing. Like it wasn't like a Hartman hook. The shaft was much, much bigger. And I said, who was I talking to? Was it Lori? I said to the girl who had it, Cheryl, I think. I think one of her friends makes it, or she makes them in limited numbers, I think, for when she's teaching. And I said, "Ooh, where did you get that?" And she said, "Well, I have them made, but it's like limited, and I use them for teaching. So she doesn't sell them and stuff." And I thought, oh, I was just so curious to try it because I would only use it in burlap or linen, right? Because it had a huge shaft. Oh, that doesn't sound good, does it? But you know what I mean. And I thought, is that good or is that not good? Like, is it so hard to press through the backing fabric that it hurts your wrist, right? Because it seems like the benefit would be that, like, it, with such a big hook, it goes through the backing and you're able to pull up more easily. But this was such an extra big hook. I thought, first problem, putting it through the backing. But I mean, obviously not if she's teaching with it and using it. I was just so curious. And since I couldn't get one that way, I thought, ooh, I wonder if I shoot over to Donna's if she'll have one of those, because I'd like to get it and try it. There must be something about it that's amazing. So I thought, let's do that tomorrow. I'll be heading away from the craziness of the parade and all that stuff and be able to catch up with Donna a little bit. I'll see if she has any new stock over there. I've gotten a lot of my books historically from her. She's got a lot of new old stock, but she must acquire it from people who are not hooking anymore, or sad scenarios where there's stuff left over and people drop it off somewhere. She seems to get a lot of new things in. So I'm curious about whether there's any books or any periodicals, catalogs that I haven't seen yet, because it's been a really long time since I've been there. It's been about a year and a half. We will see. I'll certainly let you know if I find anything exciting, because it's always fun to go there. So, all right. Sorry, that was an unnecessary detour of thought right there. Cheryl, happy potluck night on Cape Cod. Oh, I wish I was there having potluck in person. Oh, I've been thinking about the Cape. I've been wondering. I've got to look up what's at the Cahoon Museum for an exhibit. Do you know, Cheryl? They always have something very, very cool. I think I missed a Sailor's Valentine's last year. I missed them by like 2 days. And I was just wondering what exhibits they had going now because it's a beautiful small folk art museum. It's like a house museum in Ralph and Martha Cahoon's house, the folk art mermaid painters. And they always have interesting exhibits that are interesting to people who like folky stuff. You know, I'm always curious about what's going on over there. Linda B., happy St. Patty's Day to you. Oh, happy St. Patty's Day, everybody. I should have worn green. What was I thinking? Ah, those glass flower frogs are great. Oh, we're going to look at those. We're going to look at those in detail. I've got some pluses and minuses with those. So, and I think we all do, but Barbara has found ones that fit perfectly. So we're gonna take a good look at those frogs. Oh, in colors. Hope I can find some. Yeah, you know, once in a while you see them in like cranberry glass or like a light yellow. You know, sometimes. Joyce, great to see you. Happy cocktail night in Pennsylvania. Ryan, happy Friday night from rainy North Texas. Working on a new punch runner. Ryan, did you finish up your hooking project? And did that go? Did that go okay? I don't think I've seen that yet. Have I seen that yet? I know it was like you were doing something hooking and that was different. And different is good, but you know, when you go out of your comfort zone, doesn't it really have to be the right moment? Because it's like everybody wants to grow and stretch and go outside their comfort zone and go outside your box and do other stuff. But sometimes if it's not the right time, you end up getting like a false positive or a false negative on the new craft. Do you know what I mean? You start something and you're just not really there. You're ready to hate it, and you start doing it and it's like self-fulfilling prophecy. I hate it. And that happens to me all the time when I start doing something new or something I pick up and I know I don't want to and I'm just going through the motions and then sure enough I hate it. So I'm curious to know how it went with the hooking because you are almost always a puncher as far as I know. Linda B. Catherine, Linda B. Antique shops and Etsy. That's a good recommendation. Also, with flea market season coming up, I always see frogs at flea markets. Oh my God. That must be one of the most common things to find at flea markets. It's not like postcards or Pokemon cards. The frogs, they're always around. It's fun to find them. And they do make a beautiful collection, don't they? They're so odd looking. Uh-oh. All right, let's see. Sorry about that. He will stop, I promise. Lisa. Oh, hi from Jerusalem, Ohio. Great to see you. Your projects are going so, so, so well. Dave, great to see you. Hey, everybody. Pizza and coffee porter. Oh, coffee porter is my favorite. My favorite coffee, peanut butter or chocolate coffee peanut butter porter. Even better. I love coffee porter. I love porter and stout. That's my favorite. Right time of year too, right? Working on many projects. Yikes. Well, I have yours in the show for tonight and it looks fantastic. I can't wait to talk about it. Melissa, great to see you. Hello and happy Saturday. Oh, it is Saturday. I know, right? It throws you off. Hopefully not in a bad way. Hopefully you don't wake up thinking it's Saturday morning and then feeling like you were robbed of a day. I hate it when that happens. Maureen, great to see you. Mocha coffee and a Twinkie. Oh, does that sound good? Then hooking on my second rug. Oh, Maureen, that sounds amazing. I have to introduce my kids to the joy of putting Twinkies into the freezer. You know what I mean? Charleston Chew and Twinkies into the freezer. Those have got to be the top two things to put into the freezer and then eat. Barbara, great to see you. The green beer should be flowing on this St. Patrick's Day Eve. You're right about that. And how do they do that? Is it just a little bit of food coloring? Is that what's going on when I see all that green beer? Oh, man. Deborah, great to see you. Good evening. What a fun night. It is going to be a fun night. We've got a lot of different things to chat about. And Jenny, good to see you. Happy evening in rainy North Texas. Also, Jenny. Oh, bummer. I'm sorry. Cloud is going to pass. Is tomorrow going to be a good day, I hope? Olivia, oh, yes, it's absolutely nuts. I can't imagine in Ireland that anybody would miss the chance to go nuts on St. Patrick's Day. It seems like it should be some kind of a law, right? That you are obliged to go nuts on St. Patrick's Day. And Cass says, corned beef and cabbage. I will be making it using a Dutch oven tomorrow. Oh, that sounds great. I just love corned beef. It is so wet and good. Oh, flavorful. Pam, wait until you turn 70. Oh, you mean with getting easily triggered by people making noise in the street? It's a thing. I remember one time, I forget what the name of the stupid night was, but one time we were still living in the Netherlands, and there's one night of the year. I think it translates as mischief night. I'm trying to think of what that would be. It's Aryan. What's the mischief night where everybody bangs the pots and pans? He'd have to be able to hear me to answer the question, right? Because he's a full room away. I can't remember what the name of it is, but you're asleep in your bed, and at an ungodly hour, like truly, sun is not up. Hey, Michael. Oh, thank you. You still have my card. Do you want to say hi to everybody? Want to stick your face in the camera? Teddy's friend. Hi. Teddy's friend, Michael, coming to visit. He reminded me I gave them the credit card to go over and get pizza. Thank you for remembering. But you'd be asleep in your bed, and all of the sudden it's still dark out, like proper middle of the night, 3, 4 a.m., and people come right up to your windows and bang pots and pans. It sounds so quaint. Doesn't it sound charming? Particularly when I was pregnant, it was fantastic. And they actually bang on, like people would bang on windows and knock on windows and doors and shout in Dutch, like, wake up, sleepyhead. And I remember, I mean, I never took to this holiday. And I remember talking about it to someone, and it was one of my friends in the U.S. I think it was one of my friends who's quite a bit older than me. And she said something like, well, it doesn't seem right that you didn't just join them. Like, when that happens, why don't you just wake up and join them? And I thought, for the next decade, what kind of person have I become that people are banging pots and pans on my window pane, glass, and I don't spring out of bed with the attitude of like, hey, 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 here I come, instead of like opening the window and like saying bad things, I don't know when that happened. I guess it happened a long time ago. My sense of humor is just not there anymore. Comfort is king. All right, let's see. Catherine, great to see you in rainy California. It's raining out west, isn't it? Kathy, hello in New Jersey. Happy St. Patrick's Day Eve. You just got home from having a great boiled dinner. Feeling very full. Are you dangerously full right now? Oh, I love that feeling. It wears off so quickly, doesn't it? I think the chocolate cream pie we had for dessert put me over the edge. But how could you not? It would have been a shame on you if you passed on the chocolate cream pie. God, that sounds so good right now. Parades were last weekend. Oh, I didn't know that. So it is safe to drive in that direction. I don't think I will anyway. I don't like New Haven, but it's good to know that. Why would they have done it last weekend when it actually falls on a weekend this year? Doesn't it seem like you're squandering an actual weekend day? Because the chances are it wouldn't fall on the weekend, right? How weird is that? I have to say tomorrow was my sweet grandmother's birthday. I can't, Mom. How old would Gram have been at this point? Our little Irish elf. She was a mischievous little elf. But yeah, always thinking about her at this time of year. Ryan says, I did finish my hooking project, not my bag, I'm afraid. I'll stick to punching. But it was fun to experiment and try something new. Absolutely. Good for you. Good to try it, see it through, get it done. Are you going to send a picture of it for gallery night or something? I hope I didn't already see it and I'm forgetting it because I clock your work pretty well, I think. Jean, great to see you. Hello, surprised and delighted to find you on a Saturday. It is a different night. It's good to shake things up once in a while. I wasn't prepared last night with Robin being sick, and I just couldn't scramble fast enough on a day when the kids are like in and out of school, and then Teddy's at his singing lesson. I just couldn't scramble fast enough to get content in place. So I figured, let's do this instead. And the potluck has so far worked out great. Kay, great to see you. Greetings from Atha Webmaster. Kay, great to see you. I just got a message from Cheryl Bolenbach. I hope I'm saying that wrong. Sent a card the other day that was so, so, so nice. I have to say, I was super ashamed of myself when I realized that my Atha subscription had lapsed quite a bit. And the reason I think I didn't realize that is because, Mom, yours hasn't. So I've been looking at yours and nabbing yours and not realizing. So I just renewed my ATHA, and I'm super sorry that it lapsed because this issue appears to be about fractors, which is an amazing dovetailing coincidence because I'm doing the fractor class later this month. So hopefully it comes soon. I might miss this issue, but I feel like an idiot for not having noticed that. It is like ding dong, but great to see UK. It is a great site. It's a great group. It's really, really fun and companionable. I belong to so many authors right now. It's crazy. Ryan says Mischief Night in the U.S. is the night before Halloween. And no, it's in the spring over there. It's right at the time of the year that you're coming out of hibernation, and it's just not a welcome pot and pan kind of a night. Michelle, I think I have something of yours in the show too. Hello in Virginia. Great to see you. Oh, fun. Halloween. Yeah, no, it wasn't Halloween. It was that if he comes through, he needs to be standing 2 inches from me to hear words that are coming out of my mouth. But if he comes through again, I'll ask him. And I know he'll know it right off the top of his head. Oh, Cheryl says at the Cahoon Museum in Cotuit in Massachusetts on the Cape, 40 years of collections, March 13th through December 22nd. Sounds great. Sounds very eclectic. Ooh, I will be there for that. Maybe we can meet up and go do that together and then go over to the White Cat to do some rug hooking. That could be a really fun night. Absolutely last nerve. Who at best. And we have a message that I can't read, but I'm sure it's super friendly and fun. Great to see you, Ryan. Hello, hello. Kathy says a lot of parade participants march on Boston tomorrow. Something. See, the stupid heart is covering that. Scheduled prior to the 17th, Manchester, New Hampshire is next weekend. Okay, interesting. Okay. Okay, wait a minute. Tomorrow, so it's Kathy, it's getting cut off right there. A2 scheduled prior the 17th. Manchester, New Hampshire is next weekend. Kathy, do you mean the McGowan show, the fairy tale show? That I completely forgot about today. I'm hoping it is next weekend. That would be way more convenient. Kay says, yes, pronounced correctly. Does anyone know who Betty Kelly was? Ooh, I don't know who Betty Kelly was. Kay, tell us. It sounds like it's somebody who we should know, right? Interesting. Is Mischief Night in Holland like April Fool's? No. It's much more aggressive. It's not just like well, I mean, sometimes pranks here are a little bit over the top, but usually they're fairly benign. Whereas it's all about waking people up at this crazy hour, and then like you have to say this tagline that's like "Wake up, lazy heads" or something, something like that. It's really galling. It's very triggering, very triggering. But yeah, I'm gonna have to remember that. Let's see, founding member of ATHA. Okay, working on adding. I'm doing the live show. I told you. That was Teddy. The organization that march in St. Patrick's Day parades. Oh, they're marching next weekend. Interesting. Russian viewer says, where can they purchase a needle like that or have it made? Thank you so much, Pam. Okay, so let's start there with that episode. Let's start there. Where can you purchase a needle? This is always a question. In fact, I just answered somebody in France. And my French is not, my French used to be pretty good. And now it's not good at all because I don't practice at all. And I was trying to read, I don't know if any of you noticed on I think the last video, on the last video, there was like a long comment in French and it didn't have that, do you want to translate it thing? And it sounded like she was also asking, I think it was a he actually, where can I get a hook? Now this is a tough one because my go-to answer for abroad, because of shipping being so crazy, my go-to answer is like, look to the Brits because, they're using Hessian burlap and crochet hooks and it's been working out great for decades. So that's my go-to answer. But I know, I also know that once you get hooking for a while and you're really enjoying it and you're wondering, well, what is that rug hook like? Is it really easier? Does it really sort of facilitate easier movement, better work, faster work kind of thing? And Teddy, did Clara arrive? Yeah. Can you tell them to be quiet? Because I can hear their mouths. I can hear both of their mouths. Other buddies here. So let's think about that. What can we say? Because I wrote to the person in France and wrote back and said, just send me a message at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. I would be happy to send a hook as my gift. because yes, use a crochet hook and try with a crochet hook, but you all chime in on this too. What do you think? Because on one hand, it's like I do want people to get going and get started, so might as well grab what is possible, like the burlap and a crochet hook. But at the same time, one of my great worries with this craft in wanting to, to do outreach and teaching and bring it to more people is I don't like setting people up for failure. And in my mind, it is much more difficult to hook with Hessian and a crochet hook. In my mind, it's more difficult. And I know everybody works differently, but at the same time, I always worry when I give that as a response that I am setting somebody up for failure and they won't return to the craft. So I'd be curious to know what you all think about that. Russia is even trickier. It's even further. Um, does anybody have the mental power to type back and maybe translate to Russian to ask them to send a message to my email at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com? I'm absolutely fine with sending hooks abroad, just so people can get started, right? Because it could be that, like, if somebody, for example, in Russia or in France or wherever, they see the hook, right, and it's like, oh, this is my hair clip. Oh, okay. And then they can bring it to somebody who does turning of the wood and maybe like what do you call the person who would do the tip? Like not a what do you call the metal person who would put a tip on a hook or something like that? Trying to, it begins with an M, doesn't it? But maybe somebody could look at that in a different place, right? Because people that are from Europe and Asia seem to be in general, maybe this is the wrong thing to say, very handy, as opposed to me, who's like, how does this thing work? But if someone else looking at it in a different place could look at it and go, I think I could make quite a few of these, then it might open up the craft in a different part of the world. And for me, just the possibility that that could happen is well worth sending a hook to Russia. You know what I mean? That's a no-brainer. Um, okay, Jay said, I can't find her either to K. Thanks, Jay. Translate that. Let's see what happens. Judy says, I actually find myself reverting to an ergonomic crochet hook pretty often just to reset my hands, kind of like what I imagine a pencil hook would be like. So are you using the ones that are, when you say ergonomic, are you using the ones that have like that what silicone padding around it? The squishy padding around it, just and the padding, the rubbery, it's silicone, isn't it? The wrapping on it makes it a little bit easier, bigger to hold. So instead of being like something skinny like this, it's something thick like this, and your hand, maybe is holding it differently, or at least it's a change. Change is as good as a rest, right? Interesting. I sometimes go to crochet hooks too. I have to admit, it's usually when I can't find any hooks. And I have like 100 hooks, but there are moments when I can't find any of them. And I often will go to a crochet hook. The crochet hooks, the only crochet hooks so far that I find I can't hook with at all are the wooden ones for some reason. But again, that could be me. They're so pretty. I have a lot of like turned wooden hooks for crocheting. But hooking with them in rug hooking backing for me so far has not worked. Cass says, can you send things to Russia right now? I didn't even think of that one. I did not even think of that one. Whew, I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they were a little cut off right now for obvious reasons. That's a good thought. It's worth checking though, right? I mean, there's still a bunch of people over there who want to craft, right? And want their crafting lives to continue. I'll have to see if I can find that out. Machinist. Thank you, Jean. That's it. Machinist. And Kay says, that's why I'm adding Betty info to the website. Okay, great. Kay, this is the perfect time to ask about people and names and catching people. This is a great time when we're all pooling information so readily. Metalworker, blacksmith, Michelle, thank you. Machinist is definitely what I was thinking of. And Judy says, yes, the silicone squishy padding, but not huge. Yeah, it stays straight like a pencil, doesn't it? But it does have that cushioned padding. And I agree with you that it feels great to hold that in your hand. That makes a big difference as far as being ergonomic. That's one of the main reasons I want to go to Donna tomorrow, to see if I can find that enormous hook, to see what it can do. Because my worry with a hook like that is that if you've ever used the Hartman hook, it has that heavy metal brass or whatever it is point to it. The needle part, the hook part, right, is this heavy, I think it's brass. And I like the way it feels hooking with it because it's a little heavy. So gravity helps you a little bit because it kind of falls in and comes back out. But I'm just wondering, this hook that I saw in Colorado was honestly like 3 times bigger than the Hartman. It looked impossible to use. So I'm so curious about it because I'm wondering about holding it. I'm wondering about the weight of it just to keep carrying it from loop to loop, hundreds, thousands of loops, you know. So curious about that, and I'm so curious to go through. This isn't going to sound right at all, but Donna's draws. And you know, she's got all of these little draws like an old-time store, and she has got hundreds of hooks sorted by type in the different draws and punch needles. That's where I find my Danella egg beater. But I'm always curious about what she's got. And a year or a year and a half ago, last time I went through Donna's draws, I was looking for different things, and I was thinking about different things and different projects than I am at this moment or tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to go through again and go, ooh, now I remember talking about that and I just haven't seen it yet. Let me grab that. So yeah, I should make it out there tomorrow. It should be fun. If I was feeling a little bit under the weather in every way today, but hopefully tomorrow is better and I can make a little trip. Becky says, I use 2 sizes of the Addy crochet hooks. I love them. Becky, what do you use? Do you do like a 3.0, 3.5? I'm going to start showing you some stuff tonight too, because we're doing a lot of abstract talking. I'm always curious to know what sizes people use for crochet. I'm pretty much a 3.5, 90% of the time, if I do use my hook. Jean says, could someone send a schematic or plan for a hook? Oh, that's interesting. Over to a Russian wood turner. That is a great idea. Well, I love the way that this conversation's evolving, because the thing really is, right, if just today, like just this one day, I got the message from France and now we have the message from Russia, and people want to know how to get these hooks. This is not rocket surgery, is it? This is something simple that a handy person who has, like, you know, we don't want to bend a nail again. We don't want to revert to the bent nail, but there's a lot of people who are fully capable of making a prototype hook. And I love what you're thinking, because unless people see the craft, right? And I know that my videos get watched in other countries because I can see the other countries. And which one of our buddies sent? Maybe you're on right now. Sent me. Oh, it was one of my good buddies too. Sent me a link to. It might have been a Russian channel where she mentioned this channel and she mentioned me and watching videos. And it just reminds me that the word is getting out there about doing this craft, but without the tool, it makes it hard, right? So we really need to think about this, how to make this happen. I like the idea of sending something over to the right person, the plan. I still feel like the prototype is the best, but if mail was not allowed to go. Oh, Pam says Amy Oxford has a stockiest. Oh, someone who stocks in Russia. Russia Factura Needle Store in Moscow. Interesting. I hope our Russian viewer can see that, because if Amy Oxford has needles over, they must be being imported by somebody. Do you think Amy's sending them directly? That would be amazing. That's interesting because hooks should be there too. Interesting. Looks like US can't ship to Russia, but UK still can as of April. Huh. All right. If our Russian viewer is still there, let's figure out how to make this work. This is an easy ask for sure. And I'm very happy to send a hook. Let's figure it out together how we can make that happen. That could be great. That could be great. And once there's one over there, maybe they could breed. Becky, yes, 2 and a 3. Okay. Addy, ADDI, swing crochet hook. Okay, excellent. Stockist. I know, Pam. I know. I figured that's what you meant. That's interesting. That's great information. It's on Amy's list of countries that stock her punch needles. Amazing. I just sent her a message not that long ago. She hasn't answered. I was surprised because she usually answers right away. I hope everything's going okay. Judy says, mine are off-brand but shaped very similar to the Addies. Interesting. So we have all kinds of crossed over a little bit into the world of experimenting with different tools, because even with our rug hooks, even with the many kinds of rug hooks that we have that we can use, why not try other things like crochet hooks, right? Or sometimes a latch hook. A lot of people still hook with a latch hook, either into rug hook into latch hook backing, or latch hook. Karen Garvey's done this. Latch hook into, did she? Yeah, she used a latch hook to hook Rhea wool into linen. I'm sure that was the combo. And that worked great for her. And I thought, that's never going to work, putting the latch hook into the linen. She did it. She finished her piece. She made a Rhea rug in linen backing, right? Instead of the sort of pre-cut widths of the Rhea woven, she did it into our rug hooking linen with a latch hook. And when she started that project, I mean, I know better than to doubt Karen Garvey at this point, but when she started that project, I thought, I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed, right, and keep good thoughts like flowing. But I thought, man, that's gonna be hard. It was not hard. She did that project. That was one of her fastest projects. It was incredible. And Becky says, of course, I still love my Moshemer hooks, but these are so much better on my hands. Yeah, it's good to just mix it up, isn't it? Move your phone away from the mic. Getting feedback. Oh, that's weird. I'll just turn it off. Sorry about that. I didn't know that it did that. I'm so sorry. That's really weird. I hope that is it. I just turned it right off. All right, let me know if that's any better. Okay, so let's start our potluck. Let me take a different, let's officially start our potluck. I wonder if the feedback is those children upstairs. I'm going to have to shout to them if so. Kaz, you sent a great question that I want to brainstorm all together. So you sent a message and you were talking about this issue of Atha, right? That I was stupid enough to lapse and now I don't have the fracture issue. But Kaz, you said on, what was it, like page 18 or something, there was a piece that employed lots of different techniques. And you said this one piece had techniques like beading, prodding, accordion. Okay, that's it. Teddy! Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Shut the door upstairs. Shut all doors. Close all sectors. Okay. I didn't say anything bad. Okay. So Kaz, you said that there was this one project where somebody was doing beading, prodding, accordion, chain stitch, etc. That's a lot in one piece. And Kaz says, maybe you want to talk about incorporating different techniques into a rug tomorrow night. So let's talk about this. This has become more and more popular every week, every day. I'm seeing more and more pieces. You're still getting feedback. Gosh, I don't have anything else on. I wonder what's going on. It's my absolute usual setup. Let me move the mic back here. It's normally right there. Let me check my levels. Hold on, let's see. Let me check everything. Okay, hold on just a second. I'm gonna put the volume down a hair. It sounds like a movie projector running, like a steady white sound, kind of a white noise thing. Is the camera touching the computer? Nope. Okay, that fixed it. Okay, maybe it was too close to me. Gosh, that's weird. Okay, wow. Okay, great. Okay, thank you. You are being too noisy, Theodore. Okay, so Kaz said that the rug that she was talking about in the Atha magazine was made by Martha Lowry. I know Martha Lowry. I'm dying to get my hands on that issue. If anybody has a double, let me know. So interesting. I think a lot of us do the clicking. Okay, it was a clicking. I'm so sorry about that, everybody. Nothing really changed except I pushed the camera like an inch back. I hate it when that happens because I don't know how to. If it happens again, it's just like kind of potluck. If it's fixed or not. Weird clicking noise. Okay, sorry about that. Like something was vibrating. So strange. Martha is from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. So more and more, I have been seeing people doing more with proddy in hooked pieces, doing more embroidery in hooked pieces. And I have noticed that there are more and more teachers who are teaching embroidery stitches in conjunction with rug hooking. Now, in my mind, this is fairly new because Okay, says the article is called Using Special Techniques to Hook Fracture Designs. There we go. We know exactly what to expect. This sounds like an amazing article. I'm very happy that we're doing this kind of crossover now because there's no reason why, when we're working on one project, we should have to hold the hook in our hand the whole time. Absolutely, you can put the hook down and pick up a needle once in a while, right? We're still talking about a fabric backing cloth. I really like this conversation because I'm sure that I'm wrong here, right? And I want to say this the right way without sounding like a jerk, but I've always been jealous of the Promagown teachers who know all of those amazing stitches, because once in a while I see stitches and it honestly looks like magic, like witchcraft, and I think, I have a degree in textile. What is going on here? And it's like something special that is learned and shared. But if I'm not catching a class or something with the person who's doing it, I can't figure out how to do that. So I'm loving that we're seeing more and more kind of fancy stitches being done in hooked pieces, but also that we're seeing embroidery on top of a rug hooking backing. I think this is just it's the right direction to go in. Spell check got me fractor. Yeah. Let me catch up here. Since you, okay, I'm going to put my phone back on because I don't think it was my phone. Oh, I see. I'll wait a minute, Barbara, just because we're going good so far with the technology. So, yeah, so let's plan to do like gallery night must be coming up. Next week is going to be Robin, right? The interview with Robin. But the week after, let's plan on that being gallery night. So let's say for special emphasis on gallery night, why don't we say, if you happen to have, whether they're new or not, if you happen to have pieces that include like multi techniques in them, take a special care to send me some of those so we can look at some of those together. That would be a super, super fun focus. Naturebbound says, off topic, can I just say the rug done in the first issue of Magpie by Karen Garby is amazing. It is amazing. She did the Splendor Falls on Castle Walls in Mini Punch. Absolutely amazing. I have the magazine over there, and we'll probably look at it in detail later. Not tonight, but I'm sending them all out on Monday, and so is Judy's. So they're all the babies are launching, and I need to order more because I thought 200 would be enough, and you all have been ordering, and I appreciate that so much. It's a great response to the first issue, and all of the issues will be this great, I promise. So yeah, remember along those lines, remember that the next issue is Midsummer Magic. So be sending anything you think that sort of fits that topic. Teddy, I can still hear you. Like I can totally hear you. They're driving me crazy tonight. All right, let's keep going. Oh, let me show you this. This isn't exactly, this isn't a multi-technique thing, but I'll show you the little bit of problem solving I did here with materials. You know, I'm working on the month of roses, and I'm behind, so I owe you a rose from yesterday and from today. It's been a little bit magpie crazy around here, but so I owe you 2 roses. I will get you 2 roses before I go to sleep tonight. And this is one of the ones I've been working on that I haven't put up yet. I haven't even drawn it as a pattern yet. I'm still figuring out if I like it. And it looks like this. So it's got like a little girl looking over a birdhouse, and I've got it on the bleached linen. And there's a little bird inside the birdhouse. And I challenged myself to use, you know, I make my crazy 8 packs, and I have some of them that are multicolor that I take when I'm teaching and talking places. And this is one that didn't sell, and when I was packing it back up, I thought, ooh, I have to have that. Just it was the way the 8 colors looked together. It was basically these colors and a couple more, so a little more light blue and turquoise and stuff. And I thought, ooh, I really have to have that. So I started making this right with the little character in there, and oh, and then Barbara, you wrote and said, did you know there was such a thing as the Jocelyn rose? Of course, my daughter's named Jocelyn. So I was thinking this could be the Jocelyn rose right here because it certainly looks like Jocelyn, not the red hair, but everything else. But, you know, I was struggling with it because as I was doing it, I'm doing it in a number 8, right? So big, wide, primitive cut. And I was really struggling just with the colors meeting up. For example, the red hair with the pink, and there's 3 different blues so far, and it just wasn't working. And I thought, you know what? I need to get some black yarn. I don't usually do outlining in heavy black, but in this case I thought there's something about the subject of this composition that's very lighthearted and cartoony, you know what I mean? It's not like a serious subject. And I thought this is exactly the kind of subject that would suit a very cartoony handling, like this thick outlining. So I stopped at the yarn store and I got this really thick yarn. Let me pull a little bit out and show you. It looks like this. It's super, super. Let me hold it up against. I'll hold it up against my hand. It's one of these twisties. Remember, girls used to wear them like in the 70s as ribbons in your hair, right? These are the kinds of. Joss, this is the toe tickling yarn right here. Right? Joss is like, oh, I know what you're going to be doing later tonight. But it's this super soft 2-ply, very, very thick yarn. And I thought it would be a nightmare because it was an afterthought. So I kind of hooked it in. I had to move a few pieces, but I kind of squeezed it in. And I thought it would be a bit of a nightmare because it's so unspun, right? It's an acrylic, or it's a synthetic at least. And it has this very soft roving quality to it. And I thought, oh, it's going to drive me crazy on the combs of my frame and everything. But it really hasn't. None of it has been pulling or coming out or anything. Unexpected, because it really isn't the kind of yarn that hooks up well. And I'm so lazy. I've been sitting here on the couch with this tiny frame. And once I'm sitting down, I really don't like to stand up again. So I thought, oh, if I have to keep moving that thing, it's going to keep pulling it out. It hasn't. So it just goes to show what, you have your materials, you look at stuff, you make decisions based on experience and what problems that you've already had and successes that you've already had. But sometimes your materials surprise you, like this yarn. And I'm thinking, well, I'll cut a little bit off to tickle between her toes when she's falling asleep, but I'm going to keep the rest of it because this is hooking really well. And who knew, right? Fractor, off topic. And Barbara says the heavy outline looks like Dick Tracy cartoon. Absolutely. Or like a Lichtenstein, right? Like that style of art, that heavy, heavy outlining. And the more it looks so big and bulky in the parts I haven't done yet. But then you see when I start filling it in, it's really not big and bulky. Like this flower's filled in, and it kind of settles itself down. So we'll see how that goes. But it is fun to grab some different stuff and try some different stuff because why not, right? Now, here's a question for all of you. Let me come over here. Is that where I put? Nope. Hold on. Over here. There we go. Let me come over here. There we go. So I got a message today from Eileen. And Eileen said, she sent a message. She said, Dana, and Dana owns the store Madison Wool that I teach at on average once a month. So she said, Dana suggested that I write to you to get some help. I have a braided rug that my grandmother never finished. And this is a photo that she attached, rolled up. I tried to take it from different angles. So she took lots of pictures of it, but it is massive and it is heavy. So she sent a bunch of pictures. I just used this one for us tonight. And she said it's 5 or 6 feet in diameter, right? So it's round. And as you can see, it needs to be finished and also needs to be repaired. Do you know anyone who can do this? So I said to Eileen, I'm going to give a shout out tonight on the off chance that anyone, I've been shouting out for people who can help finish, as paid work, punch projects and hooking projects. If that's you, please let me know. I have different projects right now that I would love to hand out. If anybody's honestly thinking about starting a business, there's a lot of people who need stuff finished. And not just that, but I forgot to tell you, I went back to that house in Essex, the 1960s to 1980s Long Island puncher. And I grabbed a bunch of boxes of books, but I thought we'll do that on a later show because she had like 3 boxes of books. What was I going to say? When I got there, I was talking to her daughter again. And, I said, I have some leads on people who might want to finish. We'll see how it goes. It might be that I kind of farm them to different people because they are all big, huge projects. And Deborah, no problem. But I'm trying to figure all that out. And she had some more patterns that she was holding patterns up and saying, I held this one aside because one of them was something like one of those sayings like, outspoken or outgoing women never have clean houses. It was better than that, but it was something like that. And she just loved it. She loved the saying, and it hadn't been started yet. And she said, I have a few things like this that haven't been started at all. Do you think anyone would want to hook the thing from beginning to end and be paid for it? So that's another thing that's on the table right now. I said, well, it's definitely not going to be me, but let me give this shout out because it might be that someone else would say, okay, well, it's this size. I would charge this to do it. So just let me know. But in the case of this piece, this is a braided rug, and this is a large braided rug. I forgot to ask Eileen where she is. Um, oh, maybe Jay. Clean house is the sign of a something like that. Something like that. But in this case, it was a not clean house. It was an excellent joke. I have to say, it was a cute rug. It's probably like Going Gray or one of those. It was very cartoony and cute. So let me know if you are a person who looks at this and says, yes, let me tighten up that lacing and let's add some more rounds, right? Because I don't braid, right? I have braided. I don't enjoy it. I wish that I did. I sort of enjoy multi-strand braiding, and I'm teaching that next weekend. Um, I think a week from today or tomorrow in Madison at Dana's place. But I don't enjoy this kind of braiding myself because the lacing to me is a nightmare task when you feel like you should rightfully be done already. But obviously everybody feels differently and enjoys different parts of different projects. So if you're someone who is like, oh, I might be able to finish that and it doesn't look like too much work, let me know because I can forward Eileen's information to you, and then I can not be the sort of hot potato that's in the middle of the conversation. Dave says, housework never killed anybody, but why take a chance? Oh, that's even better. That is even better. I love it. Well, let me know with hooked projects, braided projects, if you feel like you are a finisher and you are, technical or not, and you just think, well, I love doing my own thing, but I'm also happy making some money, finishing some other people's projects. Please let me know. Could be really, really helpful. All right, now let's come over here. Let me see what the next. Oh, I think it was my buddy Jane. Let's see. We were just talking about this pattern. So my buddy Jane in England, Jane Davies writes, "Hi Chick." I love it when she calls me Chick. It always makes me laugh. "Hi Chick. Don't know if this is any good for potluck." Jane is in Wales. If you need some queries, if you need some queries about it, I'm having some issues. Okay, so she's having some issues with the lettering that she's doing. Even though the yarn is chunky, she feels she's still having some issues. Maybe I should try a different color. And what about the line around the peacock? Any suggestions? Welcome. So this is Splendor Falls. This is the image this is the pattern. Right. This is in Magpie, right? This is a free pattern in Magpie, one of the 22 free patterns in Magpie. Jane's been working on this, and it's been a bit of a struggle. It is a difficult pattern, right? So Karen Garby punched it, and that solved some of the problems because this is a very complicated and detailed pattern. I forgot to ask Jane what size she's doing this on. And you see how she transfers by gridding. I think that it's so interesting to look at the way you all work. I'm so interested. Because again, Jane is in Wales. There's not a rug hooking store there. She does the gridding and then she transfers it larger, and it's just another layer of work. But she's very, very capable and she's very, very used to it. So she's been struggling with this project, and she's been using the like velvet yarn, right? She mostly likes to hook with yarn. So it's going well, but she's been saying to me, ongoing, we've been looking at it together, this isn't standing out against this. So what we've got in the center is the figure of a woman in kind of Regency type costume. And she was having trouble with the lighter background making the figure stand out, right? So we're still kind of working through that. The purple is fantastic against the green. The purple pink dress against the green is fantastic. The peacock, right, is also in the mix, and it's a hard shape to articulate and to realize. Weirdly, the garden labyrinth in the background, I think, is the most natural in the way it's evolving, right? Because it does seem like, what is that weird green snaking thing? Is it the movie Tremors in the background? But this is actually reading great. The green hedges read great. So that's lucky. The character is popping because, like I said, this has been a work in progress, and we keep looking at it because it's a tough piece to do. This is a very tough piece. Now, let's get to the text in just a second. So Jane said, what do you think about the peacock? Because you can see the little peacock's head facing to the left. She did that great. But the blue against the green was a problem. And I said, I know this is going to sound crazy, and it's probably not everybody's taste. But I said, I think looking at the blue and the green and the purpley pink of the dress, the only outline color that you can use for the peacock is like a red. And I have to say, I love it. It's unexpected. For me, I love it. It's not realism, right? We're talking about trying to create contrast and separate shapes. And with this composition, we're going piece by piece, trying to figure it out as we go along. I really love the way that the peacock pops, right? This is, it's a busy composition of this woman standing on this sort of diagonal balcony. And in the background, this labyrinth-style maze. And there is balustrade and some more topiary trees in the background. And then there is the text, right? And that's where Jane is at now. And the text says, splendor. And Jane is probably going to add a U in splendor, right? It is a U because this is a Tennyson poem. But I took the U out when I did the pattern for the U.S., right? I'm being an idiot. Probably I should have left the U in. But I took it out for my pattern because I thought U.S. may be confusing. So maybe Jane adds the U back in, but it is splendor falls on castle walls. I think that's a beautiful quote. And it is hard to put text in. So approaching the text, there are two things that can happen here. There's three things that can happen here. So, Jane, I know you're going to watch this tomorrow because you better not be awake right now watching it. Olivia's naughty watching in Ireland, I know. But, Jane, I hope that you're already tucked up. So, there's three things that we can do here, right? We can continue with the text. So, let's hold that one for the end and talk about how to make the text really pop. Because this is also a tricky text because it's cursive. And there are scale changes to the fonts. So Splendor Falls is large, On is small, and Castle Walls is even larger down at the bottom. Now, okay, let's follow this through first, and then we'll talk about the other two possible scenarios. So when you're hooking text, it's always going to be a thing, right? No matter who you are, how long you've been hooking text, it's always tricky to hook text. And it's even trickier if the text is cursive, right? So the only time that I think it makes sense to really pack your loops is when you're hooking text or doing Waldeboro or doing a face, right? Sometimes you need to pack extra because you really need every loop to stand up at attention, right? And that packing, particularly with yarn, and particularly with novelty yarns like velvets, and I think up top you've got like a chenille or a lighter weight yarn mixed in with your dark, the black color that you're doing the text with is a little bit thicker, but the yarn around it is not that thick. So I think the first thing that needs to happen, I always recommend first hooking the letters, then hooking around it, then pulling out the letters, then rehooking the letters. I know that sounds like a lot of bother, but you want the letters to serve as a placeholder, because if you hook it and then you hook in dot dot all of the little loops around it, you're going to find that all of those loops distort the shape of every letter. And one or two letters, it's readable, but a whole word becomes much less illegible with every letter having distortion. So the best call is to hook it, hook around it, and then take out the letters one by one. If you take them all out at once, you're going to be searching for ticks in the dog's fur and you're not going to be finding them. It's going to be too hard to find that hollow where you pulled the yarn out, right? So just go bit by bit, shore it up as you pull it out. And it is a good tip to hook the second time in a much thicker yarn. Now, this, Jocelyn, I'm telling you, these children. Sorry. Jocelyn, I'm running a show. I can hear you. You cannot make noise in the hallway for the next hour at all. I'm getting you know what. So that would be a good trick. That would help. I think you're going to need to pack around the letters. I think you're going to need to pull out the letters, rehook, and make sure that you're packed around, because again, especially with the cursive, it's going to be tricky, right? It's going to be tricky. So you could go that route, and I can promise you it's going to come out clearer. It's just more bother and more work. You could change the font, right? So, I mean, it would change the look of it, right? Because it almost looks like a diary page the way that it's laid out now. Doesn't have to. You could change the font if it turns out to be such a bear that it's no fun at all to work with. You could eliminate the text. That's the third option. I have one more option after this. You could eliminate the text. You could add a couple more topiaries or just the sky. It's not going to really change the way the composition looks. You could add a second peacock down on the bottom where the castle walls are. All of these things are possible. If you're getting no joy, the whole point of having that one sort of line of poetry in there is to give joy and to give this special feeling. If it's not giving you that special feeling and it's giving you a different feeling that is less than special, maybe just eliminate the text, right? It has to work for you. It has to feel good. And when you look at it, after it's done, you don't want it to give you stomach cramps because it was such a nightmare to work on. You know what I mean? Pam said, just a suggestion, the values of the figure and background and the peacock are similar. If the peacock were lighter in color, it might be more pleasing. You know, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. I do love that turquoise, but I see what you mean. Um, yeah, it could be a little bit lighter. What are you thinking like a sky blue, Pam? Could be like a sky blue. Jane always works with materials that she has because, again, Wales. So not like unlimited supplies. And she's got lots and lots of yarn, thank goodness. I can always send some stuff over, Jane, if you want to make changes or any. I kind of do like the peacock. I can see it being a lighter value. I think we're going to have to define the skin a little bit more because it is close to the background color. I like the background because it's a neutral color. And it is going to stand out well against the black lettering. It's hard to comment on the lettering yet because we haven't gone far enough. And I think you're hooking the front and back at the same time. I'm just going to draw something really quick as an idea. You know, there are a lot of compositions where I think it's a lot of fun to have the text and keep the text in it. And one of the options that is always on the table is if you wanted to take the text out, right, where it says over here, Splendor Falls, and with a big lavish John Hancock of a thing, you could always take it out, put a border around it that looks more like this. I know you know what I'm doing, but I'm going to hold it up anyway. All right, I ran out of room, but you know, you could always create a nice dark border where the text is still present, but it's embedded in the border. If that's just another option, if you are working on a piece where the text is really playing you, you know, it's just another thing. It's another thing to think about. Because if you remember with Karen Garby's that's in Magpie, let me run and get it really fast because it's right over here. Let me just grab one quick. You know, I'm not doing a comparison because one is Mini Punch, one is Rug Hook. They are completely different scales. But da 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 da. Oh, I have my stupid green screen on. So, oh, this is going to have some green in it too. Let me see if I can find Karen's piece. I should have said one of the pieces I put in the picture was a little too late. It makes me angry. I wish I sent it a little bit darker because it looks a little bit washed out. Makes me angry. I always overdo it with the lightening stuff up, you know. Let me see if I can find Karen's. Oh, wait a minute. It should be this article. Okay, here it is. And it's going to be a thing to see it because, yeah, the green screen. So with the reason that Karen was able to do this way was because this is embroidery, right? These are like French knots, and this is embroidery, and the backing fabric is showing. Right, so it's on white. That's on fabric. It's not mixed in with loops. And if you see on the bottom, the castle falls. she's got like a satin stitch, right? So it's a complete, it's multiple mediums. It's different, and there's no background to contend with. Whereas with Jane's, she is contending with that background because it's hooked. Let's look at it one more time. Oops, sorry, wrong stupid window again. You know, I'm wondering. Okay, Pam, you said something else. Let me see. A light turquoise or a lighter blue or green, maybe. I can see that. Now, Olivia says, we have no rug supply shops in Ireland. Hence, I only hook and punch with yarn. You know, it is like you use what you've got, right? You have to make do because without choices. Um, Suzanne says, how can I order Magpie Magazine? So, Suzanne, it is for sale on, I've got it on my website's called Ribbon Candy Hooking. And when in the banner on the top, as soon as you go to ribboncandyhooking.com, that's green screen, you'll see that the cover of this magazine is one of the things you can click on. And it still says pre-order until Monday. So it's still available for order, and I am getting another batch in. So I got like 3 or 4 boxes, so we'll get some more boxes hopefully later this week. And it should be right there. And if you have trouble finding it, just write to me at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com, and I'll send you the link. So different ways, different problems, require different solutions. I did it again. So, you know, I'm just looking at the background color here too. I don't want to go totally crazy like Buttons the dog is currently. I'm just like easy for me to rethink the background color, right? I love that it's a neutral, but I'm just thinking if it wasn't a neutral, would that help with contrast or not? Do you remember when Jane was working on Boris the dog such a long time ago, and all the little bees that remember the dog? It was like a schnauzer for the neighbors. We talked a lot in the evenings about that piece, and in the end, that was absolutely magical because Jane has a style that is so distinctive, and Jane is much more of a player with fiber. Like she doesn't get triggered the way that I get triggered. She'll work on something and then say, yeah, it's not, I don't like this part anymore. I'm changing it. And that to her, she's like, that easy solution. To me, it's like, I'm setting it on fire. But to her, she's like, yeah, let's just change this. This works. So it's always good to talk it through because I know she is the kind of person who's like, great idea. Let's do that instead. I do like the background color because it's neutral. I just want to be sure that there is a distinction between the skin tone in the hands and in the face right now in the background color. But we're supposed to be focusing on the words right now. We should look at this again, Jane. I need a picture that's in a little bit better light too, so I can really see what's going on here. It's hard to get a feel for the scale too. It looks like a medium-sized piece. Not that that helps with the text. But yeah, let's think about the possibilities with the text. Olivia said, I got a few pure wool skirts in charity shops to felt, but not attempted to cut them up yet. Oh, man. Well, you know what? You could always run them through the wash if you're definitely not going to wear them and make sure that they are going to hook up well and that it's worth cutting into them. And if it's not easy to cut into them, you could hook into them. Right, you can try hooking into them because if it's a woven, you very well might be able to run a hook through it and pull loops up in the background if it's really beautiful fabric that you don't want to cut. Let's stay tuned. So Jane, for the moment, I might start packing a little more of the background material around the words. Pack. I know you're not supposed to, but in this case, I think you've got to, because that light neutral background yarn is very, very thin. And I think it needs more support. So I think pack that up a bit and then slowly start taking out the S and rehooking it. I think you can still hook it in the black, but see if you can get a clearer swirl going so that I know what it says, so I'm reading it easily, but I imagine if you don't know what it says that it could be difficult to read. So just start that technique just with like the S and the P, and then let's sit down again and put our heads together and reassess and make sure that is the next best thing. She is such a good sport working on this, right? I mean, because it is a hard piece. I don't have a lot of pieces, I have to say, in the shop that are that hard. And if you've noticed, I haven't hooked that piece. It is a hard piece. I think it is beyond my capabilities at this moment. So that is a huge to be continued. Now, hang on. Nope, Pam, I have something from you first. So, Pam, you said, hope I'm not too late, but someone asked me, okay, this is the one I need help with. But someone asked me, how do you do an estimate of how much yarn you would need to hook a piece, a project? I am clearly not the person to ask because of the way you hook. You do your watercolor hooking, and you hoard yarn. But maybe there is a solution for those that don't use as many colors as you do. Yeah, your style, you like just because you're a painter is you mix as you go. You change colors a lot. That gives your work that incredible glow. I get what you mean if you're just doing like a fill, right? Like bucket, right? Like in the whatever Adobe whatever bucket, you just fill the space. How much? What is the ratio? What is the equation of? Is that a Slim Jim for you, you little dibble dog?
He's clean.
What's the name of the holiday in the Netherlands where people bang pots and pans and knock on your window first thing?
Pentecost.
Oh, it is
Pinkster.
Pentecost. It is Pentecost.
Pinkster.
Yes.
Pentecost.
All right, we were talking about that earlier. Was that expected or was that unexpected? Yes, it is Pentecost. So let's see. But maybe there is a solution for those who don't use as many colors. Would it be like estimating the amount of wool strips? I just don't know. Could this be a question that can be answered on cocktail time? Well, let's see. This is a tough one. You know, it's tough and it's getting tougher to answer this question because even when we're talking about yarn, for example, Pam, the way that you work with so many different fibers, Juliet, same thing, so many different fibers, the Canadian school of hooking, thick ones, thin ones, satin ones, ribbony, velvet, different textures, different weights, will give different sort of loftiness to each loop. We're not talking about apples and apples if you're using more than one kind of wool, right? If I was going to measure how much of this black wool, this toe tickling wool, I would use to bucket fill, for example, the hair, it would be very different than my Briggs and Little 2-ply. So it's always going to be a bit of a moving target answering this question for people. If I'm going to equate it to wool strips because I'm more familiar with wool strips. When I'm a pretty average hooker. I'm not a super high hooker and I'm definitely not a low hooker. But when I am guesstimating how much wool I will need to cut up into strips to do a fill, for example, the hair on the girl, I, for myself, do about 4 times more than the space. If I'm kitting something, making a kit, I do 5 times more because some people hook a little higher or some people pack a little more than I do. So I do 5 to err on the cautious side. With yarn, I'm not a good person to guess. So I wrote to my friend Rebecca earlier, but I shut my phone off. But she hadn't written back when we started the show. Tell me if you hear that buzzing again, because I just turned it back on the off chance that she answered. All she does mostly yarn, and she does punching, but also hooking. And I know she's given me her equation before. Her equation might be different than your equation or someone else's equation. Does anybody want to chime in with an answer to this one? This is a hard one to answer for sure. When I kit with yarn, I typically have hooked the parts of the composition that I'm not sure about quantity on, and then I know how much yarn I used, and I will add like 50% to it just in case. I'm always erring on the cautious side. Let me see if she wrote back. No, not yet. Shoot. Oh, Barbara. Oh, see, this was a good thing. Remember we were talking a minute ago about the fractor thing on in the Atha magazine it was by Molly. Come on, let me come back up here. Martha Lowry. I'm so sorry, Molly. And Barbara sent it. This is, if you have the Atha magazine, this is what that image looks like, right? Because Kaz was saying, oh, this particular image, lots of different techniques. Super wide cut, like ripped strips here, regular hooking with yarn. This looks like standing wool here, right? Like the leafy part, quilly over here, right? So there's a bunch of different techniques happening there. Barbara, thank you for that image. That's super, super handy. Michelle says, could you hook a sample area, then pull it out and measure the amount and figure out the total? You could, but you know what would be better, Michelle? I'm just shutting my phone off. It'd be better to first cut your yarn. Don't don't hook it or punch it with the idea of pulling it out. Hook it or punch it with the idea of leaving it in. But for example, this is what I do if I'm measuring a space with yarn, right, to make a kit. I will give myself like a cut of, for example, 10 yards, and then I hook with it or punch with it. And then if it covered the ground, great. I know that that's about the right amount, and then I'll add more for a kit. Or if it didn't quite cover, then I'll cut another 3 or 5 or more yards. But I don't want to pull it out. I want to leave it in there, right? Because why waste your time? But just measure it before you put it into your piece, because then you know for you too the way that you hook, the looseness of it versus the tightness of it, the height of it versus if it's very low, then you'll know for yourself. That's the best way to gauge. The best way to gauge, right, is to fill in, for example, if you've got a background like a square corner, so that you can say to yourself, a square inch for me uses 8 yards, right? Or 10 yards, right? It's going to be different for all of us. And then you can say to yourself, if you're more computer savvy than me, right? Because I can do this, but usually my husband has to help me with this. You can put a picture into the computer, a line drawing, and you can divide it up in some programs according to the grass. What percentage is the grass of the whole thing, right? So if you are a very technical person and you're measuring your materials as you go, it is possible with the help of the computer or your eyeballs, right? If you get in the habit of working this way, to say, okay, well, the grass is a little bit bigger than the sky, and if I used 60 yards for the grass, I'm probably going to use something like 45 or 50 for the sky. You get good at guesstimating. Um, but doing a sample is always the best. And, when Rebecca responds, I will write on our Facebook page or have her write on the Facebook page, Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, to give her answer. Because she teaches hooking and punching with yarn a lot. And she's more of a technical teacher by far than I am. I am way more of a screwball. So I think her answer would have a lot more value than mine would anyway. So I'll definitely pass it on as soon as she lets me know. Oh, Ruth, great to see you. And Judy says, I wonder how big a swatch you'd have to do to calculate. You could weigh the yarn. That's true. That's a good point too, that you plan to use. Okay, this is a good evolution of this conversation. Fill it with like a 4x4 area at least, I think. Then weigh the yarn after you see, or weigh it before, so you don't have to pull it out. You could do that too, right? Just don't plan on pulling it out. Just plan on leaving it in there, but measure it first, and then you save yourself the step of re-hooking it. Michelle, great to see you. So I like this idea because, to Judy's point, what we said earlier, some of the yarn is thick and fuzzy and roving and furry and is going to cover a lot more space. And those yarns are typically thicker and heavier. So when we're talking about heavier weight yarns, whether they're bulky or just airy, they will hook up differently and you will need a different amount of them. They will weigh more, but you will need less. So, it's not about, I'm getting to like this sample idea more. It's not a bad idea to hook. Maybe do like a hit or miss pattern where you can incorporate it so it's not a complete waste of time doing samples. But if you did samples of the yarns that you use most often, for example, I use 2-ply Briggs and Little, 3-ply Briggs and Little a lot. I also use a ton of sock yarn. If I did samples, a 4x4 square or something of those, pre-measured, so I know how much, because I probably keep adding to it, right? I do like 30 yards and maybe another 20 yards and still not there, maybe another 10 yards, and I'd keep it all added up on a piece of paper because I would otherwise forget. And then I really have a good tally of what I've done. That would be a good use of time, because then you know for yourself, um, there will be a mathematical equation that comes from Rebecca, but it might not fit you, right? So, speaking of things fitting, I'm telling you, I almost had a breakdown yesterday when we went to Target because Jocelyn was shopping for brasiers. She is just this little girl, right? It's crazy. We're talking about fit, and oh, it was just yeah, it wasn't good for me. It was like, oh my God, things are getting away from us fast. But it's not always apples and apples, so it's not a bad idea to see what fits you, what fits your hooking. Your styles, your favorite go-to yarns. Do samples with those and see. And then you can at least eyeball the space that you want to fill and say, well, I know I use this much for this part, so for the dress, it's definitely not going to be that much. Is it about half? Well, it's about 2/3, that kind of thing. If you're good at that. But I promise you, I will get back to you with Rebecca's superior information as soon as I can. Olivia says, I have a tip. Make a hand fist each. Um, uh, make a hand fist each. Each fist is roughly. Okay, so I've heard this before and I forgot. So Olivia says, take a fistful, and each fistful is roughly 25 grams. I've heard that before. I would never have remembered that number ever. I might have said like 100 grams or 3 grams. Like I'm so bad with numbers. So 25 grams. So of course there is wiggle room, right? If your hands are smaller, bigger, whatever. But I think this is a good starting point, right? Because if you can figure out weight wise how tight you hook with yarn, then weight and yardage, right? There is a mathematical equation between those two. So if you can figure out the weight, you're going to also be able to figure out the yardage. That is a ratio. And the more you can personalize it to your own style, your own technique, the easier it's going to be able to guess and not buy a lot of extra stuff that you don't need, right? Olivia, thank you. That was really, really helpful because some people only think in grams. I know Rebecca does because when we talk about stuff like this, and because we both have these kinds of companies, it must seem to other people in cafes like the most boring conversations they've ever heard. But we often talk about stuff like this, and she always talks about wool, whether it's yarn or wool fabric, in grams, right? In ounces and grams, and that's how she thinks of it. Where I'm like, was it this big? Did it have a diagonal rip across? Like we think differently. So it's good to be able to equate both and to kind of hardwire the connection with your hooking by doing a sample between the weight and the yardage, right? That will be your golden number. Olivia, thank you. That was super handy. So to be continued on that. Now, Jessica said, okay, Jessica Troyer, who's been doing amazing work, right? A lot of family rugs and stuff. I have just been falling in love with Jessica fast. Pam says 25 grams equals 0.0000326 yards. Pam, thank you. That to me, that was a Snoopy's that was a Charlie Brown's teacher to me. That just got me. See, I am not a technical person at all, but I know a lot of you are watching and going, oh, obviously, right? So thank you. So that is super handy. Thank you. I'm just gonna grab a piece of paper. Let me grab some paper from the trash. Let's do some trash. Let's do some trash diving. Let's talk about composition for a while. Why not? Jessica's saying, I would love a discussion on designing rugs, especially composition and color planning. Well, let's cover this question for the next few minutes because we still have a lot more. We have a lot more potluck to go. Let's see how it goes. Let me pull some of this stuff out. Now, okay, let me show you this. This is going to be a spoiler alert, and let me grab my tracing paper too. Let's do this. Let's do this for a minute. If you have paper near you, you grab some tracing paper or two or just a notepad or post-it note. I know I'm moving the thing just for a second. Or post-it note. Work with me for a second. Let's see what we got. Let's talk about composition real fast. Composition is something that I love and that I do a lot of. This is my favorite part of is rug making, is creating a design that I love and running with it. So for example, there's lots of different ways to start a composition. Now, I did a custom order. I've been working on a custom order for somebody of a dog, like the bust of a dog, just the little chest and the little head and all that. And I wanted to give her some options other than like the floating head option. I was giving her some other options, and one of the options I gave her was, do you want a border? And for example, do you want a border like this, right? Like, as rug hookers, we are super familiar with the lamb's tongue border. So something like this. When you're starting a composition, first of all, I mean, there's so this, I do like full 2 hour classes just on composition, but in a nutshell, right? Um, you want to think about, for Jessica specifically, you usually do stuff that's based on your family stories. So you usually start with a photograph or a moment or text. I've noticed that with your stuff. And when you start with something like that, let's go with that scenario. Um, that's the center, right? That's not the part you're going to drop in last. That's the part you're going to drop in first. So, for example, the piece that you did with your mom sitting on the bench with the kids, I think the kids were running toward her and her back was to us, and it was like, I think, facing a pond or maybe facing the woods, like autumn woods. I know you know the one I'm talking about. You would have to start with that kind of a composition that is a storytelling piece. You would have to start with the bench with the mom, right? You would need to anchor that into the composition and then either work from a photograph if you wanted the surroundings to look exactly like you did, like the surroundings that day. Um, let's say we weren't doing something that was story driven, and instead we were doing something for the sake of like being kind of brief. Let's say we were doing something that was instead motif driven. So one of the easiest ways to um, approach a composition. Say you love primitive hooking, right? You like doing simple stuff. Maybe you feel, I don't mean you, Jessica, because you are an excellent artist. And a lot of people who are on the thread right now are excellent artists. Let's say that somebody watching who feels they are not an excellent artist would like some tips to do some designing. The best tip that I can give you for primitive design is the a symmetrical design, the reverse or the one page fold. So for example, spoiler alert, I was working on this earlier. This isn't the finished version, but this is a design I was working on for the Tropicana Rose. So this will be, is that you, Nature Bound? I bet that's not true. I bet you're great. But, you know, everybody's good at different things too, right? So let's say I was starting a composition, these rose compositions. One of the easiest things to do in rug hooking is get your piece of tracing paper and fold it in half. Tracing paper is the best tip I can give you if you are getting into designing. It's the best tip I can give you. I fold my tracing paper in half, right? I'm going to leave the lamb's tongues because why not, right? I'll show you some other options for corners, but let's say this is what I'm doing. I want to do a primitive composition. Maybe I don't want it completely symmetrical. Maybe symmetrical things drive me a little crazy. Let's do something that's not completely symmetrical. Let's start with a flower pot, right? Because everybody loves a flower pot. But, okay, let me think for a second. Give me something that's not a flower pot that I can use as a vessel to put flowers in. Let's think for a second. Give me something unusual that I can use as a vessel. I still want to have flowers, but give me something unusual. Hey, Michael, how's it going, honey?
Good.
Awesome. I love it when he comes.
Right
Are you leaving?
Yeah.
Say hi to your mom. Thank you for coming over and being an awesome guest as usual.
Yeah.
Love you. He hates it when I say that. I do, though. Yes, old boot. Let's do it. I also like milk can, but let's do old boot. If we're going to do old boot, I'm going to change my orientation to, it could be like galoshes boot, right? I love all these suggestions. These are all good ones. Watering can. I'm going to do old boot because it came up first. And I'm going to change my orientation to this, right? So it could still be a symmetrical. This is a great one, actually. It could still be a symmetrical piece. Let me draw an old boot first. So here we go. I'm drawing the old boot for the most part on my center line. And wait a minute. It's going to be a bit of a wonky old boot. Yeah, there we go. Something like that, right? And then maybe I decide later, does the boot have this? Is it like a spats thing like this? You know what I mean? You can decide, is it a rain boot, right, that has a much broader, and is the whole boot patterned? That's also possible. You know what I mean? Like a rain boot that would be more like, that would be a great vessel too. Something that's more like this. You know, like they're like preformed, like little rain boots, and then they're covered with flowers or, you know, calico or whatever. That would be a great vessel too. But for this moment, let's do more of this kind of boot. Now, if I've got my boot in the center, right, and I haven't really made any design decisions yet about buckles or what kind of boot it is. This is a weird line. Let's cut that. But if I've got my boot in the center, now my choice would be, because I'm starting with a motif that is not symmetrical, because it's a boot, right? Flower pot baskets, those are typically symmetrical, but this is not symmetrical. So now I'm at a weird crossroads where I want to think to myself, if I'm going to put an asymmetrical bouquet of flowers into an asymmetrical boot, that could, will I like it? Is it incorrect? No, it's not incorrect, but it will be doubly unstable, right? This is not a stable form. It's one motif, right? It's not symmetrical. Let's show both options. Let's say I'm going to create a symmetrical composition for this. It's probably not going to work well just because the nature of the boot is irregular and it's a bit casual, right? An old boot, it's a bit casual. If I want to make a symmetrical composition, I do need to fold this up, right? So half of my boot is half and half, but if I got my tracing paper going, it's always tricky with floral compositions to get that center flower in without it looking forced. Sorry, I'm concentrating while I'm doing this. All right, so say we do something like this. It's going to be a very boring one, I have to say. I put 3 flowers in here, and then I'm just going to flip over my tracing paper, and I'm going to trace those guys out. So let's do this. I'm tracing my 3 flowers. Now, this is going to be very boring, but it is symmetrical. That's very boring, but we can fix it. So now I'm going to attack the centers of the flowers, and I'm going to do a stylized kind of Macintosh sort of flower in the center of each one, right? Very Art Deco flowers. So hold on, I'm going to show you the flowers, right? And it's going to get better yet. So then I want to attach my stems, but if I want it to be perfectly symmetrical, I need to fold back over. Let's come back over here and do something like this. And so I have connected my stems. Now, this is uber symmetrical flower bouquet. I could, at any point during my composition, right, say, this isn't, which I've done one with like witch's boot, right? That was really fun. You could, if you're loving the symmetry, say, okay, I'm going to keep going with flowers in the right places. I'm sorry, leaves in the right places. I'm going to keep going with that. And then you would keep folding your paper so that you kept balancing every additional motif that you were throwing in there. Now, right, you keep getting symmetry, more and more symmetry. Maybe at the top, I want a leaf coming right out of the, there we go, right out of the top flower. But achieving symmetry is quite easy. It just becomes a question of, do you want symmetry? Now let's do the opposite, right? Let's do the opposite just for the sake of fun, right? So I'm going to get a different piece of paper. Oh, and let's complete the thought about the border. Say you were like, lamb's tongue's not doing it for me. You can fold your thing back into quarters. Let me just draw the edge so it's really visible. Hang on. It's going to be sloppy, you know, because I'm working like a pig right here. Hold on. Let's do like this. I mean, lamb's tongues always work for rug hooking, but it's good to have options. So, and the thing about evolving a composition, the thing about tracing paper is you can change your mind 100 times, and you can take the elements that you have been loving and just take out the elements you haven't been loving. So for example, with this composition, if I'm on tracing paper, I can look at it in the light and go, I could see where I could do an oval. So let me do an oval. I can see there's a boot. You see the boot tip is in the way. So that's the part I want to get to, because that's the part that's sticking out. That's the part that's going to interrupt my perfect oval. So let me come over here to where the boot tip is, and let me make a corner. All right, so you see what I got going there? This is the boot tip, and here's the corner sweep right here, this line here. Now, if I want my composition to remain symmetrical, I'm going to put that sweep into the whole thing. But in other places, it's not going to be interrupted by the tip of the boot. So let's do that. And now I have to fold my piece the other way, right? Because I've got these two sides traced. And now I need to fold it the other way so that I can get these two sides traced through it. I know that was out of focus, but we'll get it back on. And I got my oval going here, right? And it was as easy as that to change my border to being, why isn't it in focus now? To being an oval border, right? So now this would be a good moment if I was thinking, ooh, you know, I want to do something else in the border. Maybe I want to do more flowers, or maybe I want to do geometrics, right? Maybe I want to do this stuff in the border. Again, this is the great thing about tracing paper. Maybe I want some of this happening in the border, a little Mackenzie child, or maybe I want a more pronounced lamb's tongue, right? Something like this in the border. This one here. Or maybe I want to do, like, I love to do this. 20, I always have to think about what the year is. The old 2024, right? You could add something like that. So let's depart from there and let's just do one more sample exercise talking about composition. So let's do the opposite. Same premise, but let's play with it the other way around. I'm going to do 2 boots, right? I'm going to do a pair of boots because one boot gave me a problem with symmetry where I had to make the decision, do we stay symmetrical or do we go asymmetrical? One is an odd number, right? So I can really choose. Let's say we go this time for 2 boots. I got a little bit of a mark under here, but we'll just have to ignore it. So let's do, I'm going to draw 2 boots. Okay, so I've got one boot like this. And then I'm going to come over here. And I'm going to trace that one so we got a double. And then we're going to talk about the other scenario. Because, of course, this doesn't have to be, this could be anything. This doesn't have to be flowers. There could be people coming out. There could be animals coming out. Could be anything. So now I've got 2 boots. And now we're talking about a different conversation. Probably should have done it the other way still. Let's say that I don't want to be symmetrical, right? I don't want to be symmetrical. I'm in a position now where I could do anything, right? With a composition like this, right? This is a split motif. So say I was going to, I'm going to show you how I'm going to solve this kind of a problem. Because this is actually a tricky kind of thing we got going. So let's say, all right. I'm going to show you what I'm doing in a second. Let's say I get my bouquet started like that, right? It's a bit wild right now. It usually settles down. And I don't want a symmetrical composition. But let's say I trace through similar lines, but not the same for variety. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. All right, so I trace some of the same lines, but not all of the same lines. So if I do that, I can start having the conversation with myself. How do we want to fluff it out, right? That's how I think of it. Let's fluff it. So if I was going to do that, I don't want any more symmetry. I want some asymmetry now. So I could really cut loose, I'm adding a bunch of leaves in different places. And it could be that I add more flowers. And now that some of the lines, some of the principal lines are fairly symmetrical, it's enough that the design is quite stable, right? The boots are also symmetrical. The design is quite stable. At this point, I could go bonkers, right? I could add all kinds of fluff. And let me show you some fluff. I don't know that anyone would ever want to do this kind of a design, but you could just keep going like this where you're not worried about symmetry and you're just adding bits and pieces, thinking, yeah, a little more of that, a little less of that. Maybe these are all pumpkins. Maybe these are witches' boots. I love witches' boots at Halloween. Maybe they're like this. right? Something like that. Who knows? Or they're checkered or whatever. But you can always decide partway through, particularly easy when you're using tracing paper. Am I too symmetrical? Do I want to loosen up? Do I want to take my foot off the gas and make it a little bit less symmetrical? Even once you've done your composition, you can still ask yourself questions like, well, what am I going to do in the background, right? Do I want to do something funny in the background, like maybe these are Cinderella shoes and not boots at all or something. And maybe I want like a hill in the background with a little castle on it, something like that. And there's a little castle in the background. Maybe it's a little landscape with some trees. Probably doesn't look much like a landscape with trees. Or maybe you're thinking, I want to do, just want to do like an interesting fill in the background. And you have it in mind that you're going to hook it all echo like this. And you're going to change colors as you go, right? Because you don't need a full composition if your plan is to kind of marble your background anyway. You don't need a ton of extra lines. You don't need to keep layering more and more motifs in. You could just drop in one motif like flowers or a basket or something like an animal. But, you know, my best tip, again, is using the tracing paper because you immediately, I don't like either of these at all, but you immediately see when you're working on something, that works or that doesn't work. And it's very easy to say, I exactly like the shape of the boot. I don't want, if I redraw the boot freehand, it's not going to be the same. It's true. So that's why I love the tracing paper, because if I do something I really love, I can trace that part exactly. And if everything else is a big, which it is, then I can get rid of the rest of it, right? But you can keep the parts that you like. Isn't that the great thing about life? When you get to keep the parts that you like and you get to throw the other stuff out, that hardly ever happens. Judy says, no worries. Oh, thanks, Michelle. Hello, I'm from Kansas. I'm so glad. Suze, I'm so glad that you made it too. We can always talk about composition anytime. It's always fun talking about it and thinking about it. You know, and it's always fun talking about with this horrible boot, right? The idea of having just like a galoshes boot. It'd be much more clunky than that, right? Look at kind of a Norman Rockwell with a few wildflowers coming out of it. But with a boot that is more of a galoshes boot than, for example, an old riding boot or something like that. You know, the story might be the pattern on the boot, right? Because it would be so heavily patterned if it wasn't a solid galoshes boot. And it would be kind of fun now that I think about it. Ooh, I just had another idea. This is what happens with teacup designs a lot, but you could likewise do it with a boot design. You know how on teacups, the prestige is often, it's a picture of a teacup, but the picture on the teacup is the whole story. That's a cool thing to think of too. If you had an idea for like a landscape that you wanted to do on a boot, and the whole picture, the whole landscape or the little house or whatever you had going was actually on the boot. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's nighttime or whatever. And then you've got some flowers coming out of the boot, and the flowers are kind of secondary because your story is actually the picture on the boot. I just drew some cypress trees. But you know what I mean. That would be really cool too. And then with a solid background, it's unexpected, right? Because you expect to see the picture like in the background. You put the picture somewhere else, like on the side of a teacup or on the side of a boot. It already is an interesting composition because it's so unexpected, right? Playing little games and thinking about how to do things in an unexpected way is what makes a great composition. All right, let's get back to... Oh, thanks, Mom. I was going crazy this morning with the roses. I was having so much fun with the roses. All right, let's come back over here. Yes, okay. Juliet. Juliet says, Deanna, here's something for your smorgasbord show. I like that word too, smorgasbord. So let me show you the image she sent me. This is another stumper for me. So she said, now look at this picture. I can make it larger. She said, so my mom gave me this partially finished kit from Germany. They got it in the 1970s from my Oma and Opa, who lived there. It's got an interesting backing and cut wool for latch hooking. Okay, I do know the answer to this. Anyone know anything about these kits? So let's look at this. I do happen to know. I'm realizing it. Hold on one second. Let me unlock so we can go a little bit bigger and we can scroll around so you can see a little bit better. Now, on the surface, it looks like a latch hook kit, doesn't it? Because you spy with your little eye those pre-cut acrylic yarns. It's packaged like an acrylic kit. The finished product looks like latch hook kits, right? So all of that looks predictable. Whoa. But then look at this part, right? Look at the backing fabric and look at the illustration that we are lucky enough. It's just the way that the paper is facing inside the box. Look at the illustration. It looks like latch hook, right? It is a latch hook. There is a toggle on the hook. I can see that on the picture on the right. And in the illustration, the yarn is being wrapped around the hook and then pulled the same way that you would with a latch hook, right? Yes, Kaz. Yes, it is. This is a, how do I want to phrase it? I don't want to create a new category. It is a fake Rhea kit. So do you remember when I went to visit Melinda Bird of Bird Call Studio? And remember how it was her grandparents who brought Rhea rug making to the U.S. And if you remember these episodes with Melinda Bird, the thing about the Rhea rug making, it's knotting, but it's knotting with a needle. It's not knotting with a hook. And the fabric is real particular. It's woven, right? So from top to bottom, you can have some variation and say, oh, I'll have a really long one like a runner. You can cut it that way, but you can't cut it sideways because the material actually ends in a selvage on both sides. That dictates how wide your piece will be. Top to bottom, movable. Movable feast, side to side, no. So you get wide ones if you want a giant kind of tapestry thing, and you get small ones if you want a small runner or something for the table. So you make that decision first, and then it can grow top to bottom, but not side to side. So you have your backing fabric and you have your needle, and you're making knots in a specific way with the needle, right? The needle's just running. You have to figure it out. It's like a cat's cradle moment, you know, when you're getting yourself all knotted up, but you figure it out, and it's the same knot every time. And with Rhea rug making, you're going from row. Hey, Juliet, we're talking about yours right now. You go from row to row, and the rows are interrupted, are staggered, right? There's a large space in between each row because of the height of the pile. It's a clipped pile. It's a long, lofty kind of pile, right? It's high. And it's going to look pixelated because it's not a tight loop close to the surface, right? So when you're doing a Rhea rug or a latch hook rug, you know it looks a bit shaggy, and that pixelation is there because of the height of the pile. Do you remember when we were talking to Melinda Bird, and she said that the reason her, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't want to mess with their family history, but she said the reason that her grandparents kind of the business ended, right, was because companies who had a lot of clout, funds, power, everything, began to notice and make kits that were similar to Rhea rug kits. And because of the cost of the original products, importing that specific woven cloth for the backing that's unique to Rhea, and the wool, right? The wool material that does make the Rhea rug, right? It's kind of an oxymoron to say a Rhea rug made of acrylic. It's not impossible. It's a Rhea rug style, but the wool is what makes the Rhea rug, right? That is the form. Like it's like saying I'll take an omelet, but hold the eggs. You know what I mean? So I think that's what we got going here. You can see by the stitches on the back, it is not a Rhea rug, right? The backing is different, but you can see on the right side of the frame, it does have the high pile. When you finish it, it does have the high pile. This is an example of one of those rugs, right? This one came from Germany, right? And Rhea rugs came from Sweden. Isn't it Sweden? Finland? Sweden. No, it's Sweden. Isn't it? Now I'm second guessing myself. It's Scandinavia. But you can see that this is not Rhea rug backing. This is a woven backing, and you would be putting the hook through those satiny stripes, right? And this has been sewn on the edges, so maybe there's more flexibility with this particular form. But it is showing you this is the right backing for it, and that latch hook will go through your backing, and it will pull knots up, and it will end up looking something like a latch hook, but because there is a little distance from row to row, not as much distance as with a Ria rug. Think about learning cursive and handwriting on a piece of paper. Remember how the lines were a little bit staggered so that there was some breathing room in between? There's a little breathing room here, but not as much as a Ria rug. So when we look at a Ria rug, you look at the pile of it and you see almost lines. Your eye can detect lines like waves coming into the shore. It's distinct, right? And the lines are formed because there is a break between every row of knotting. With this, the rows are much closer together, so there's not a lot of breathing room. So the finished products that we're seeing the examples of and the little peaks of it that we're getting on the side, we are seeing something that looks interchangeable with a latch hook because the rows are very close together. And we are using a latch hook. So it is a different craft, but it is certainly emulating Ria rug making. So this was a moment in time. This didn't last long. Um, these kinds of kits, and I don't want to say fake Ria rug because that's not fair either. This was the obvious evolution for what was after the Ria rug making. It made sense to go to more of a latch form, right? More sort of commercial, using different materials that were less expensive, had legs, right, for a wider public. In terms of the economy of this kit, obviously a lot lower price point than a Ria rug kit. So it made a lot of sense for these kits to be introduced. But I can't help but have kind of sore feelings about it for Melinda and her family because it put their business out of business. Much larger companies able to produce these much less expensive and having a quite similar effect. But that is what we're seeing, and the dead giveaway is the back. It's all satiny and flat, right? It is obviously not being worked in the same way as a Ria rug. It's not a needle and thread project. We're seeing several pieces of one color laying flat in one stitch. So it almost looks like oversized cross stitch, doesn't it? So let's look at the illustration again. I mean, I have to say, I am just, this is my guess, right? I don't have this kit. I don't have any of these kits. I've never seen this in real life. I am just making an educated guess based on my knowledge of Ria rugs and latch hook, but I could well be wrong. It looks to me like in the picture, they are saying, just like with Ria, don't use one piece of the pre-cut yarn, use like multiple. Like with Ria, you can use like 3, 4 more, whatever. It looks like they're encouraging that with this as well. So you're coming up with a much denser knot, right, on the pile. The more yarn you put into it, right, the more packed it's going to be. Coming back to Jane's piece with the words in the background, the more packed it is, the more straight it's going to stand up. It's not going to kind of fall down and make those pretty ripples, that ripple effect from row to row. It's not going to do that because with this many strands of acrylic, it's going to be really packed. It's going to stand up just like a latch hook. It's just a slightly different form. It's a different backing. It's not as stiff as the latch hook. You are still using the latch hook. You are still using the same materials. The only thing that's different and is the backing, right? And the backing will dictate. You can't do latch hook into this, right? You can't. You need more weight into each knot, right? It's a completely different backing. You also can't do Ria into this, right? It's not set up for that either. So this was I believe this was its own craft for a while. I don't know if it had a broad name, like, oh, it was called, I don't know if there is a word for it. I don't know. Smyrna. There we go. I do know it's Smyrna. Smyrna is a shifty word though, isn't it? Because Smyrna covers a lot of people confuse Ria rugs with Smyrna, but it also is confused a lot within embroidery. People go, oh, that's Smyrna work. Oh, no, it's not. That's a full blast latch hook rug. So Smyrna and latch became interchangeable in the 70s. And it might be because Smyrna was being used more in Europe and those kits were making their way here. I don't know. There is a great, in my first book, I in the latch hook chapter, I often quoted, I'll never remember her name, but it's well documented in the latch hook chapter. There was one woman who has done the most astonishing historical work into latch hook. She's in Britain. And if you look up like latch hook history, it's like 100 pages of text, photographs, old tools. I pulled heavily on that for the latch hook chapter of my first book. But she would probably know the answers to this. It's probably there in the text. I also think that I used to hear the word Smyrna a lot more when I lived in Europe than I do now. So it could just be that it's also like a regional thing as well. I don't know. I have never been a big I'm not a big rear rug maker yet, although I hope to be in the future. And I've never been a huge latch hook latcher. I mean, I was one years ago, but I've returned to it a little bit, but not full blast. So I'm not super knowledgeable on this subject, but this is exactly what it looks like to me. It's a hybrid between rear rugs and latch hook. And it is interesting. Juliet, you said the yarn is real wool. Do you think so? I mean, it could be. It absolutely could be. I just assumed it wasn't because of the way it was packaged and it looked just like latch, but it could well be. I know, and we know this from past episodes, that there is a lot of Rhea Rug yarn that was made by like Caron, the company, that usually did acrylics, but their Rhea Rug materials were real wool. And there were a few companies like that were unexpected, never any like pure fiber except with their high pile kits. So it is entirely possible. In fact, Karen Garby, that piece I was talking about earlier, when she latch hooked into linen and made that Rhea rug of her own design, just the effect, right? Because it wasn't Rhea backing. It was 100% wool, and it was being sold on eBay as new old stock Rhea wool, RYA. So absolutely, it could be. That's really interesting. Juliet says, I think, do you mean my mom and I my mom did finish one dog, the landscape kit, and started the other one. Oh, how fun. Hope to finish it eventually. And Jean says, sorry, gotta go. We'll catch the end later. Thank you for all the information. Oh, Jean, we'll see you next time. Have a great night. And Juliet says, I don't know how to join them. Like, yes. Okay. I noticed that too, that there was one of the pictures they offered was butted up against the one next to it. Juliet says, yes, it says that on the photos. Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that. Hold on one second. Let me come back over here. Okay, let me make this bigger again. Let's look one more time because it looks like there's more detail here. And it looks like we got another potluck night ahead of us. I see what you mean. For example, these two pictures go together. So, okay, that's tricky. Let me look at the edge of the yarn. You know, it, it it might be that it's meant to be almost like a triptych, but two panels. It was a bit of a 70s thing to break up continuation pictures like this, like panels. It could be that it's not meant to go together, but since it's cloth, I bet it could go together. I'm just looking at the seams, the way they end. I mean, the seams looks like it's just like a very loose kind of running basting stitch going up the edge. Um, I think if you wanted to join them, it would be better to do it before you knotted across the seam. I think once you have ended both seams, it's going to be very hard. Even if you are an immaculate stitcher, right, and you want to open up this stitch, which would take 5 seconds, and overstitch them, attach them together. I think once you have those good solid lines in there, like the vertical sides, it's going to be harder to hide the seam. I think it'd be better if you wanted to finish the edges to attach the two backings before you hit the edges, and then just as best you can, run right across both of them with whatever color, right? So you might be going through 2-ply or even 4-ply if you end up not taking them out and just attaching them the way they are. You're going to be running through some extra material, but I think it would be worth it because I think it's the only way to avoid having a really visible seam. Remember Barbara's piece when we were talking about attaching rugs one time, the different kind of chair pads or small square rugs, and Barbara had found the one at the flea market, and they were all attached. Just a quart. It was Sadie's mom's scrapbook, right? The idea of attaching smaller rugs so that you have a small frame and it's not a big pain in the butt in your living room, and then you attach them later. Once you have finished the edges and it's defined, it is remarkably hard to attach stuff after the fact and not be able to see the seams in them. So always better to attach first, even if it means it's a bit hard going working on the seam. I think it's worth it in the end, just so you don't have that interruption, right? Because I think it's impossible to not have that show. Let's look one more time before we end. I just want to sniff in here one more time. I'm sniffing. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Um, let's see, moth proof. So it's moth proof. It's probably going to be, it probably says moth proof wool. Yep, new wool. Yep, I see it. I see that. Interesting. It's a fun thing to get a hold of, isn't it? That really is a fun thing to get a hold of. I'm looking at this picture here that maybe you can see too, with the sun rising and the maybe poppies or yeah, maybe poppies and sunflowers. You know, with pieces like this, it has a very 70s color palette, doesn't it? But if you look at this piece, for example, and for example, if you just removed some of the brown and replaced it with green, it really wouldn't look 70s at all, would it? If you just did a few color substitutions, it really wouldn't look 70s. Yes, those two are side by side. Yep. You're going to post the photos on Facebook. That'd be great, Juliet. That'd be great. It'd be fun to look at it. It's a fun thing to talk about. It's a fun thing to look at. It's fun to find something like this. Flashback. It is definitely a flashback. It really is, with some of these compositions, it really is just the color. Oh, they have it attached. Okay, that is the two pieces. They have it attached. I bet that's why they provide the kit with the side so loosely sewn, right? Like that's this little running stitch that we're seeing is, I'm sure it's machine made, but you could pull that out in one go, right? Just yank it out and it's going to come out in one go. That's probably why they do it like that. So it gives you the opportunity to undo it and attach it yourself. I don't think, I'm just guessing, but I don't think with the latch hook tool that you could poke through 4 layers of this. I think you could poke through 2, but I don't think you'd want to poke through a folded layer. I think you'd want to sew and overlap 2 flat pieces and just latch right across it. I don't know that I would want to fold it. You'd have to experiment with it, because just like my black yarn here, sometimes it's surprising what you can do. Can't believe we didn't get too far. That is the nature of potluck night, right? Is to kind of chat a bit, like we're standing around in the kitchen with the chafing dishes, is to kind of chat a bit. I didn't even get through the first page. That's really incredible, isn't it? I, I didn't even get through the first column of the first page. Right here, Juliet, you're here and here. And then I've got this page, I've got like 5 more pages. I was afraid I wasn't going to have any content. I was saying, oh, if I finish early, I'll take you to Dairy Queen. Well, that closed 3 minutes ago. All right, well, we're going to save these. We're not going to squander them. We're going to save all these other great questions. So we'll look at these. We'll look at these during the week. This will be great content for us during the week. We can look at this on Monday. And yeah, I mean, some of you brought some stuff I'd never heard of or seen before. Such a lot of fun. Great contributions. So now everybody knows next time we do a potluck, this is the kind of thing we're doing. We're talking about stuff and figuring stuff out, asking questions, doing shout out questions. What would be better? How does this work? Where can I buy it? What is it? Like all of these questions, beginner questions, advanced questions, 1970s era craft questions. I love it. This is all great fiber stuff for us to talk about, think about. Next time you see one of those Smyrna kits and you are going, is that a latch hook or is that a rear rug? It's neither. It is the hybrid. It's going to be like the unicorn of kits. I'm going to have to check. I'm going to eat in a minute, but I'm going to have to check eBay while I'm eating and see how many of those Smyrna kits are out there and what the designs are like. I'm so curious to try running the latch hook through that backing. It doesn't look possible, does it? But it must be, because it worked great. All right. Well, everybody. Oh, Juliet says that stitch is where you hook the wool under. Is where you hook the wool under. You mean like around the side so that it carries over to around the edge, so you don't see any of the white showing. It's where you hook the back side. Okay, interesting. The stitch is where you hook the wool under. You don't see stitches on the back side when it's done. Okay. So all the flat stitches, that wasn't the back side of it showing, all like the solid stitches? That you don't see that when you look at the back? Do you back it? Like, is the fabric for backing it so you don't see any stitches on the back? The back looked so pretty with the stitches looked so pretty. I just assumed it was the back. Great evening, fun, love potluck format. Happy weekend. Order Magpie Times. That's it. Yep, I'm gonna get some more in because we are flat out. Okay, thank you for logging on. I always love to see you. Pam would love to see more Juliet. So yeah, in the Facebook group, post some more. We want to see what that thing looks like. That was crazy. Michelle, thank you. Michelle, I have your question for next time, right? I didn't get to your question yet. Not even close. Oh, Olivia. Olivia, you better go to bed. It's St. Patrick's Day already there. You better get some sleep and fortify, right? Happy St. Patrick's Day. Drink the Guinness, eat the cake and the corned beef, right? I will enjoy. I can't wait. Ooh, Ryan says there's what Ryan, good to see you. Ryan says there's one on eBay for $200. That's too rich for my blood, but that's interesting to know that it's there. It is a great piece of history to own, isn't it? One of the Smyrna kits. All right, fun night. I will see you all Monday. Have a great day tomorrow. If I end up going to Donna's place, Whispering Hill tomorrow, I'll try to take some photographs and collect some interesting information and look for that wacky hook so I can share that with you and see how those really large hooks work. Happy Sunday, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I will